Hi, I'm Cody Rudman, and for my Makers project, I actually combined my two passions in life, engineering and service to those in need. So let me give you some background. 2 summers ago, I visited Peru, and I volunteered at the School for the Deaf in Cusco, and I actually showed the kids how to make my favorite paper airplane designs. Then we came back one day, and we saw them working on their own designs, and they kept coming up to me and showing me the adjustments they had made, and it was really inspiring. Looking back at this experience, I realized that all it took was like a simple paper airplane to inspire an interest in like STEM and science, and the notion of my Makers project was born as a result of this experience. Alright, so my project idea was to create a non-profit organization and website to sell a unique and affordable remote control plane kit in order to raise money for the School for the Deaf children in Cusco, Peru. It was my goal to create an RC plane that was easy to build, fly, and it was also cost effective. The process was not easy. Each one of these steps was a major challenge. I began by researching possible plane designs. So after doing some intensive online research and looking at a bunch of different sites for a bunch of different inspirations, I found a design that was small, yet basic, and it seemed like it could be simplified even further. One of the main problems we ran into right away was space. Fitting the servos, receiver, motor, speed controller, and battery into this design was extremely difficult due to the motor we had available, which was way too big for the plane. So the problem was the motor had to be smaller or the battery had to be bigger. So whatever we did, weight was still an issue. We also painted it for a cool look, but later found that even the paint was a weight issue. When we started flying, the torque of the engine, because the engine was so big, it made the entire plane fly to the right. The plane was tiny and the motor was just way too powerful for it. So ultimately we decided that the plane was not a good option. It was too small and would require a great deal of skill for an untrained RC pilot, as it was actually pretty difficult for us to fly it. So you've seen pictures of the previous plane on this video, but we completely dismantled it to use the parts for my next design. Since there were issues with space and weight, we decided to use a larger plane design. We found a good design for a powered aircraft that would give us plenty of room for electronics on the inside. There was a problem though. We used a smaller battery than we should have, and the plane was tail heavy. We ended up having to add a lot of ballast, which is weight to the front of the plane. But the plane gets heavier and heavier as you do this. So then when you're trying to land it, it drops like a rock. It flew very well once it was balanced, but again, it was very heavy. Although we knew that the next model of this plane could be improved and made even lighter, we decided against selling this model for 2 reasons. It was still too complicated for a beginner to fly. I decided that offering a powered option might not be cost effective or affordable. For the next design, I found a small, light, and easily modifiable glider designed to use. And this was my final design. We made sure it had just enough space to fit the battery and servos and the rest of the electronics. After I built the main part of the plane out of foam core, I cut holes into the fuselage to hold the servos. I added servo horns to the controlled surfaces to attach wire to the controlled surfaces. And then I beveled the rudder and the elevator so that they can move in order to control the glider in flight. One of the main challenges in building this glider was making a battery pack to fit the requirements necessary. So the battery pack needed to have an output of 6 volts to match the servo voltage. It needed to be able to fit inside the plane. It needed to be lightweight and last a long time. A battery pack did not exist for this plane before we created it. So what we ended up doing was soldering 2 3-volt batteries together in a series circuit to match the 6 volts required. So the rest was pretty straightforward. We needed to add in the receiver and plug everything into the receiver and add ballast to the front of the plane. In the end, the plane was satisfyingly light. In a later model, however, we found a more efficient battery with fewer parts, and it served as a ballast as it was actually heavier than the previous battery pack. This kit includes a pre-cut foam core for the fuselage and wings, servos to manipulate the control surfaces, and a RC transmitter, all for $89. So far, we have raised over $2,000 for my cause. Thank you for watching, and feel free to check out my website at soaringwithstem.com.